Just do it. Let's just do this. Good morning, saxophone warriors, wherever you are in the world today. Just got back from walking the dogs first thing in the morning here on the West Coast, and we're walking early because it's getting up into the big 80s, early 90s, and that's super hot for us, okay? That is hot for us. I know for many of you living out, I've got a student in Yuma, for example. He's a $110 at night. All right. I know a lot of you are experiencing much greater heat. So walk slow, stay in the shade, and drink a lot of water. Okay. Anyway, another thing I wanted to talk to you about was last week's session on procrastination. Many of you had written in or emailed me with comments about procrastination. Procrastination being, in my opinion, one of the number one killers of creativity, of any sort of progress. Procrastination, putting things off. And as I revealed in the lesson, I don't really know why I procrastinate. All I know is that I do. I'll get into these slumps of procrastination, and I don't know how to fix it either. So it was just one of those, hey, you probably have it too. So do I. Let's work through this. And I want to thank those of you who wrote back from around the globe. I absolutely love this YouTube saxophone community that we've all created here at Dave Good Music. And I couldn't thank you more for your comments, and I've taken them to heart. And procrastination, yeah, shows its ugly face, and then we don't play, we don't practice, we don't, so anyway. Today's session is going to be back to improvising, and I want to talk to you about one overlooked skill that will take your improvising to the next level, all right? No matter where you're at in your journey, you could be brand new, fresh out of improvising school, whatever. You could be a master improviser. You could be brand new at this, you're, in middle school, or maybe you've come back to the horn and you're building your chops back up. Wherever you are in the journey, this one skill will really help you take your playing to a level that you hadn't thought possible. It's called relative pitch. Relative, like we all have relatives, right? And pitch, as in tone. It's a self-teaching skill, all right? What I mean by that is you teach yourself how to have relative pitch, all right? All you need is your instrument, and it could be any instrument. I don't care what you play, but for the purposes of our little club here, the saxophone, you need a pair of ears, all right? You got those, and a source of music, all right? Any source of music, don't care what it is. It can be a radio, turntable, old-fashioned record player, YouTube, obviously we have that, Spotify, a keyboard, whatever you have. You can use any of those devices to generate music or even tones. Now turn it on and play along, okay? Play along to anything, I don't care what. Frank Sinatra, Bad Bunny, I don't care what it is. Your job will be to isolate tones as best you can and then try and find them on your instrument. Now to simplify, you could maybe generate tone from a keyboard. Just sit there and, just plink on a note from a keyboard and try to find that on your horn. Failing that, you could have somebody in your home could sing random notes, okay? And you could try to find them on your horn. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard. And that's probably the most simple way to do it. Just, individual simple tones that you will try to find on your horn as quickly as you can. The average student here in my studio takes 4 or 5 attempts before they nail the note. Does it get easier? Yeah, like everything. Make this simple exercise of playing along, right? Part of your daily play time. We don't call it practice anymore, right? We play. And you will see exponential growth in your soloing, all right? What is relative pitch? Relative pitch is the ability, as defined, of a person to identify or recreate a given musical note in relation to a reference note. Let's go back to that keyboard. Somebody plays a note. bing, and you find it on your horn, all right? Who had relative pitch? Great examples of that in the history of music are Stan Getz, a man who was said to have known a great deal of music theory but really didn't care much about it and listened to what everybody else was playing. These are stories that, I wasn't in the band with him, so I read these things or I see them in interviews. He listened, right? He used his ears and he found places to go. And he was one of those guys, by the way, that could find the right note. Oh, they just grabbed your heart, right? Who else had relative pitch? Louis Armstrong, all right? If you don't know Louis Armstrong, shame on you. Turn this off and go look him up. Louis Armstrong, the trumpet player, came up from hard times, started from absolute no means whatsoever in probably the roughest part of New Orleans. And somehow landed up with a cornet or a trumpet or something and used his ears, right? And learned how to play it. And then there was Chet Baker, another trumpet player, also his finger, Chet Baker, who I think it was Jerry Mulligan, the bari sax player, who said that Chet Baker, who did not know music theory and could not, by all accounts, even read music, right? That Chet Baker had the fastest fingers that Jerry Mulligan had ever seen. I take that to mean relative pitch, right? He could hear stuff and find it immediately on his trumpet. Another guy who could also find just those, like Stan Getz, just those, oh my God, just those, the most beautiful haunting notes in any chord, any structure, right? We're going to get back to that near the end, all right? But perfect pitch, by the way, is not to be confused with relative pitch. It's a whole different animal. Perfect pitch would be the ability to, let's say, to sing actual notes. So you could sing a note and it would actually be like you would know what the note was. See, like B flat, you could sing that B flat or whatever. Now, since saxophones are transposing instruments, your relative pitch skills will function best on whichever horn you practice on the most. All right, are you a B flatter, tenor sax, or a soprano sax? I spent about 10, 12 years on the tenor sax professionally, really hit it hard. And an alto sax just fell out of the sky, metaphorically speaking. Landed in my lap right about the time I had broken my wrist. I think we talked about this 6 months ago, 7 months ago. And it was very hard to hold the tenor sax anymore. And, loss of motion, arthritic pain, and all that nonsense. So the alto sax just showed up. Alto sax, of course, being the horn that I started on when I was just a short time ago, 10 years old, right? And I'm playing the alto sax again now. And I found that my sense of relative pitch, finding notes on the alto sax, was about 4 steps off, right? So, but it comes quickly. So again, if you play tenor sax a lot, and then you pick up the alto and you double on that, you're going to find that your sense of relative pitch, well, you might be stumbling around for a minute or two there. All right. And again, our saxophones, if you haven't heard this before, are transposing instruments. Alto sax, bari sax are in E flat. Tenor sax and soprano sax are B flat instruments, right? So in other words, we go back to that keyboard. Your piano player plays a C, like middle C. In order to sound like middle C, the tenor sax has to play a D, all right? D for dog. By the way, the dogs are being very quiet today. Knock on wood, right? The alto sax, you and I have to play an A to sound like a C, okay? Relative pitch is a skill that is so important, and it's one that you can develop, all right? It's not beyond your skill set. You can do this, okay? The upside is it brings you and the tool that you use to play solos, and again, in our case, the saxophone, into closer alignment. It brings that instrument closer to you, that tool. That's all the saxophone is, by the way. It's just a tool to express the music that comes from where? Oh, it's in you, of course. And that's a good thing, to bring the tool into closer alignment. Yes, you've got to know, yes, don't get me wrong here. You got to know your scales, you got to know your arpeggios. You got to know, you got to know your chord tones. You got to be able to play over simple changes. All that stuff you have to work on. You got to put that all into the intellectual hopper. You need to know that stuff, all right? And you need to know that stuff on pretty zesty recall, okay? But again, those are tools. Those are tools, intellectual tools, much as the alphabet is a tool that a writer a writer might use to communicate something, right? Or that we're using right now. I'm using letters in the alphabet to make these sentences, and I'm not thinking about them very much. Although I do have a script. I'll show you. It's my script. Here's my teleprompter, right? Anyway, pretty much DIY. But why don't people teach about the wonders of relative pitch? That is such a good question, and I knew you were going to ask it. Because relative pitch really can't be taught, all right? Can't teach it. I can't teach you how to do relative pitch. I can sit with you and make notes, and you can stumble around and try to find them and develop your sense of relative pitch, but I can't teach you how to do that. Can't be taught, really can't even be passed down via the oral tradition. Relative pitch is a student's to do and do alone, okay? Why should you care? All right, once again, relative pitch is one of those things that I said earlier would help you just make great strides forward in your ability to improvise a solo on your saxophone. Relative pitch allows you to link up with the melody. Even if you don't know the melody, you've never heard the melody before, you can link up with that real quickly if you've got that sense of relative pitch. You may not know the chord progressions, but you can follow them if you've got relative pitch and your fingers are quick because you've been playing along to sources of music. I believe Sonny Rollins has talked about this in the past. When he was a child, they didn't have any money for music lessons. Is the camera drifting here? Is it moving? Sorry if it is. Anyway, we should have a crew, lighting crew, makeup, all that, but we don't, so forgive me. Sonny Rollins, back to him, I digress, talked about playing along to the radio and learning all the melodies that he could learn, all the melodies, and he did, all right? And, who's going to criticize that way of learning to play the instrument? Not me. Beautiful way to learn how to play. And all of my students who are improvising students who have gotten into the situations in school band now where they're playing jazz, in their jazz classes. One of the exercises I've had them to do over the years is to have them work on relative pitch by hijacking a pop song that they like and sticking their own solo in the middle of it, right? And I'm talking 12 to 13 and 14-year-olds who have done that have all just shot to the top of the class. So relative pitch helps you find, again, the notes on your horn that are being played in the band that you're playing along with, right? You will be able to identify melody quickly, chord structure, chord root move, all that stuff. All the things that, we teach you intellectually, right? And soloing is really about composing. You're making up a solo from what you got. How about in here, all right? You got that in here, or what you've heard over the years from other, musicians, or maybe you're extrapolating on the melody. And that's going to be what we'll talk about next week. Composing, is really what improvising is. And we'll talk about that more. Don't get flustered just yet about that. Let's work on relative pitch. Spend 10 minutes. You got 10 minutes a day in your playtime with your horn? Play along to music for 10 minutes a day. And don't worry about not being good at it. This is where you're not supposed to be good at things. This is where you're developing things, okay? The easiest way to get there, again, is to have a practice buddy, somebody that can play single notes on a guitar, piano, keyboard, or somebody could sing notes out loud to you. Lacking that, again, play along to, just put the radio on. I've got Jazz 88.3, which is our local jazz station here in the background. And I'll go in there in a couple of minutes and just play along to it. So anyway, make this part of your learning curve, would you? Make this part of your learning curve, and your improvised solos will really start to improve, all right? I promise. All right. If you have any questions, comments, you can always find me at davegoodsax@gmail.com. davegoodsax@gmail.com, or you can leave comments in the comments section below. If this helps you, hit that subscribe button, if anything, and I surely hope that this does help you as much as you've all helped me over the years with your various comments. Hit that subscribe button, and I think it helps me in the YouTube algorithms or whatever to hit the old thumbs up. If you can, I'd love to have comments from you. I'd love to hear from you. Even better, I'd love to hear about your progress with relative pitch. All right. Stay cool, have fun, play a lot of music. Catch you next time.